The welding torch hissed in my hands. Sparks scattered across the metal plating, each one a tiny star dying against the dark. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and stepped back. Another hull panel finished. Another perfect scene. 18 years of this. 18 years of building ships I'd never fly. The sirens cut through the silence. Red lights pulsed along the station corridor. The intercom crackled. Final shipment arriving. Prepare for station decommission procedures. I dropped the torch and ran to the observation deck. Through the scratched plexiglass, I watched the corporate hauler drift closer. It dumped 6 containers into our docking bay without slowing down. No acknowledgement, no transmission. The hauler's engines flared and it vanished into the black. We were 47 prisoners on Station Sigma 7. Debt laborers, they called us. We welded hull plating for the corporate fleet. 20 hours a day. Every credit we earned went to rehabilitation costs that only grew. I'd been here since I was 19. Some of the others had been here 30 years. We'd never seen freedom. Never even seen the inside of the ships we built. 6 months ago, everything changed. I was cleaning the mess hall when I found the tablet. The station supervisor had left it behind after his final inspection. Corporate property. Encrypted. But I'd learned a few things in 18 years. I cracked it in 3 days. The file was labeled Sigma 7 Decommission, Final Authorization. I read it twice, then a third time. My hands shook. Station Sigma 7. Permanent shutdown. Day 240. Personnel extraction. Cost not approved. Remote life support termination. Authorized. They were going to shut us down. Turn off the air. Let us suffocate in the dark while they moved on to cheaper labor elsewhere. We had 22 days. I called a meeting that night. All 47 of us crammed into the cargo bay. I showed them the file. Some cried, some screamed, some just stared at the floor. We need a way out, I said. We need a ship. A woman named Iris laughed bitterly. With what? Our outstanding welding skills? Exactly that, I replied. We built their fleet. We can build our own. With what materials, Kale? Someone shouted. We have scrap metal and welding torches. I pointed to the 6 containers the hauler had just delivered. We have whatever's in those. We opened them in silence. The first container, twisted structural beams, radiation-scorched and brittle. The second, hull fragments with stress fractures running through them like spider webs. The third, burned-out wiring and corroded circuits. The fourth, refuse from a reactor cleaning, still glowing faintly with residual heat. The 5th container was empty except for packing foam. I felt hope dying in my chest. Then someone shouted from the 6th container, Kale, get over here. I climbed inside. At the bottom, wrapped in hazard tape and caution symbols, sat a cylindrical unit the size of a small shuttle. Cooling fins, magnetic containment housing, fuel injectors, a propulsion core, experimental model, prototype series, and stamped across the casing in red letters. Rejected, critical instability, do not use. I ran my hand along the surface. It hummed faintly. Still active. It works, I whispered. It's also marked unstable, Iris said behind me. The corporation rejected it for a reason. The corporation rejects anything that costs more than it's worth to them, I replied. Doesn't mean it's broken. Means it's expensive. I spent 3 days inspecting every inch of that core. The reactor chamber was intact. The fuel cells were full. The magnetic containment was flawless. But the cooling system had been deliberately damaged. Someone had scored the refrigerant lines with a cutting torch, just enough to trigger a failure alert, but not enough to actually break them. This was sabotage. Intentional sabotage designed to make the core look dangerous. I recognized the welding pattern. It was a technique I'd taught to new prisoners 5 years ago. A specific way of beveling cuts to reduce stress fractures. Only a handful of people knew it. I went back to the stolen tablet and searched the personnel database. Cross-referenced the welding pattern with every technician who'd worked on experimental propulsion in the past decade. One name, Lena Voss, former prisoner. Sigma 7, released 4 years ago under exceptional merit transfer, moved to corporate engineering division. I pulled her file. There was a note in her personnel record. Advanced welding specialist, unorthodox methods. High-value asset, she'd gotten out. She'd made it to the other side. And she'd sent this core back to us. I dug deeper into the core's diagnostic files. Hidden in the system logs, buried under layers of error codes, I found a single text string. Welded right. You know how. LV. Lena had sabotaged this core on purpose, so it would be rejected and sent here. She knew we could fix it. She knew we could use it. I called another meeting. We have a working reactor, I announced. We have enough scrap metal to build a frame. We have the best welders in the corporate fleet right here in this room. We can build a ship. The room erupted. Half the prisoners shouted in support. The other half shouted that it was suicide. If that reactor fails, we all die, someone yelled. If we do nothing, we all die in 22 days, I shouted back. At least this way we die trying. I forced a vote. 31 in favor, 16 against. I looked at the 16 who'd voted no. I'm not forcing anyone, but if you stay, you die when they cut the life support. If you come with us, you might die building the ship, but you might also live. 14 of them changed their votes. We started that night. We tore apart the station piece by piece. Structural beams became the ship's spine. Hull fragments became plating. We stripped the life support system for wiring. We cannibalized the station's backup generator for power conduits. The work was brutal. We had no blueprints, no engineering software, just 18 years of experience and desperation. 2 prisoners died in the first week. Radiation exposure while installing the reactor shielding. We didn't have proper suits. We wrapped ourselves in lead-lined blankets and hoped. The reactor overheated 3 times. Each time, I had to manually shut it down by crawling into the containment chamber and bleeding the coolant lines. My hands blistered, my skin peeled, but I got it done. The ship grew. Ugly. Asymmetrical. A patchwork of mismatched panels held together by welds that would make a corporate inspector cry, but it held. On day 19, we welded the final hull plate into place. I stepped back and looked at what we'd built. It looked like something dredged from a scrapyard and glued together by children. Someone suggested we name it. Restos, Iris said quietly. Remains. The name stuck. On day 20, we loaded the remaining supplies. 45 of us were left. 2 had died from radiation. We sealed the airlocks. I sat in the pilot's chair, a repurposed command console from the station's control room. Everyone strapped in? I called over the cone. 44 voices confirmed. I powered up the reactor. The core hummed. The containment field stabilized. The ship vibrated beneath us. Here we go, I whispered, and ignited the thrusters. Nothing happened. I checked the fuel lines, the ignition sequence, the magnetic couplings. Everything looked correct. I tried again. The thrusters fired for half a second and died. Iris appeared beside me. The reactor's overheating. The coolant system can't keep up with the load. We fixed the coolant lines, I said. We patched them. We didn't replace them. They're leaking. I stared at the reactor readout. Temperature rising. We had maybe 10 minutes before containment failed. Then the proximity alarm screamed. 2 corporate cruisers dropping out of hyperspace. 18 minutes out. They'd detected our reactor signature. "They're coming," someone shouted. "They're coming to kill us." I slammed my fist on the console. "Iris, how long to fix the coolant leak?" 30 minutes. Maybe more. We don't have 30 minutes. Then we don't have a ship. I looked at the 44 faces staring at me. Exhausted, terrified, hoping I had an answer. "We overloaded," I said. "Push the reactor past safety limits. Burn hot enough to get us moving before it melts down." "That'll kill the reactor," Iris said. "And maybe us with it. It's that or wait for the cruisers." She nodded slowly. "Do it." I diverted all power to the reactor. Temperature spiked. The ship groaned. The hull plating rattled. Then someone ran a calculation. Kale, the ship's weight. With 45 of us plus supplies ... The thrusters can't lift it. We're too heavy. Silence. "How many can we carry?" I asked quietly. 28. Maybe 30 if we dump the supplies. I felt my stomach drop. "We're not leaving anyone." "Then we don't launch," Iris said. The cruisers were 12 minutes out. I stood up. "We dump the supplies. We overload the life support. We make it work. Kale, it's not enough." The cargo bay door opened. 7 of the oldest prisoners walked in. They were carrying welding torches and sealant kits. "We're staying," one of them said. His name was Marcus. He'd been here 32 years. "No," I said. "No one stays?" "We're not asking permission, kid," Marcus replied. "We're too old, too sick. We'd slow you down out there. But we can hold this ship together long enough for you to launch." "Marcus, we're doing this." "Kale, we're sealing the coolant leaks from outside. You get everyone else inside and you fly." Tears burned my eyes. "I can't." "Yes, you can." He gripped my shoulder. "We didn't build this thing to watch it fail. Now get moving." The 7 of them sealed themselves outside the main hull. I watched them through the viewport, welding patches onto the reactor housing while the cruisers closed in. 8 minutes. I sat back in the pilot's chair. "Everyone hold on." I pushed the reactor to maximum. The temperature hit critical. The ship shuddered. The hull plate screamed. And we lifted, slowly, painfully. The Restos clawed its way off the station deck. I saw Marcus through the rear camera, still welding, his suit glowing red from the reactor heat. The atmosphere thinned. The 7 outside didn't have pressure suits, just maintenance gear. I saw Marcus wave once, and the viewport went dark. We broke orbit. 6 minutes later, the cruisers opened fire. The first salvo hit our starboard plating. I braced for the breach, for the hull to tear apart, for the air to explode out into space. Nothing happened. I checked the sensors. The hull plating was scorched, dented, but intact. Another volley. More hits. The ship rang like a bell, but the hull held. I didn't understand. Corporate weapons could punch through military-grade armor. Our ship was made of scrap. It shouldn't have survived the first shot. Then I looked at the damage scans. The welds, the layered plating, the stress distribution. We'd built this ship by hand. Every weld was custom. Every seam was reinforced exactly where it needed to be. We'd spent 18 years learning where corporate hulls failed. We knew every weak point, every stress fracture, every shortcut the automated systems took. We'd built a ship that didn't have those weaknesses. The cruisers adjusted their targeting, concentrated fire on the engine housing. The impacts hammered us. The reactor temperature spiked. Alarms screamed. "We can't take much more," Iris shouted. I watched the cruisers maneuvering. They were trying to box us in, one on each side. Classic pincer formation. But we were small, nimble, built from scrap that flexed instead of shattered. I cut the main thrusters and fired the lateral jets. The Restos spun. The cruisers adjusted, trying to track us. They were too close together now, closing the gap to block our escape. I reignited the main thrusters at full burn. The Restos shot forward, directly between the two cruisers. They tried to veer off. Too late. Their hulls clipped each other. Armor tore. Atmosphere vented. One cruiser's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the void. We punched through the debris field and jumped to hyperspace. 4 months later, we docked at Havenport, a free station. No corporate flags. No debt labor. Just people trying to survive outside the system. We stumbled off the Restos. 38 of us, burned, scarred, alive. A woman was waiting in the hangar. Dark hair, welder's goggles hanging around her neck. Lena Voss. She smiled when she saw me. Kale, I knew you'd make it. I walked over and hugged her. You sabotaged that core. I made sure the right people got it, she corrected. The corporation would have scrapped it. You needed it more. You got out, I said. You were free. Why risk coming back? Because I knew what you could do with it. She gestured to the Restos, battered and smoking behind us. And I was right. She led us to a meeting room. Rebel commanders, fleet officers, people who'd been fighting the corporations for years. A general studied images of the Restos, close-ups of the hull plating, diagrams of our welds. Your ship survived concentrated fire from 2 cruisers, she said. Ours don't. We need you to teach us how. I looked at the 37 faces behind me, exhausted, traumatized, hands scarred from 18 years of forced labor. We're not soldiers, I said quietly. We're not asking you to fight, the general replied. We're asking you to build. I touched the fresh tattoo on my right arm. 7 names. 7 people who'd held the hull together so we could escape. We don't know how to make war, I said, but we know how to make things that don't break. 6 months later, the first rebel fleet with Restos-class hulls engaged 3 corporate cruisers near the outer rim. The corporate weapons hammered the rebel ships, scarred them, dented them, but didn't break them. The rebel fleet advanced. The cruisers retreated. For the first time in 40 years, the corporations backed down. I stood in a free shipyard, teaching 200 former prisoners how to weld properly. Not fast, not cheap, but right. I held up a hull plate, just like the one I'd been working on that last day at Sigma 7. They gave us their trash to die with, I said. We turned it into a fleet. The Restos sat in the center of the hangar, retired now, but not forgotten. Someone had engraved words into the hull plating by hand. For the 7. For freedom. For the welds that don't break. I looked at the scars on my hands. The burns. The calluses. 18 years of slavery had taught me how to build something the corporations couldn't break. And now we were teaching everyone else. Lena joined me by the Restos. The corporations are already trying to reverse engineer our hulls, she said. They can't figure it out. Their automated systems can't replicate hand welds. Good, I replied. Let them try. She pulled out a datapad. I have something else. Fleet schematics. I stole them before I left. Complete layouts of their new capital ships. Weak points. Design flaws. Everything. I took the pad and scrolled through the files. My hands started shaking. Lena, this is their entire fleet. I know, she smiled. I figured you'd want to know or not to weld. I laughed. For the first time in 18 years, I laughed until my ribs hurt. The Restos hung behind us. Old, battered, beautiful. We'd taken their scrap, their rejects, their trash. And we'd built the one thing they couldn't destroy. Hope, if you want to know how. Lena stole those fleet schematics and what happened in the first major battle against the corporate capital ships. Leave a comment below. And subscribe to the channel. We've got more stories of people who built the impossible.